Hello, everyone. Can everybody hear me? We're waiting for Barry to come on. There he goes. Barry's on. So guys, look forward to this great training from Barry Eisen. Okay, Barry will discuss ideas for dealing with the realities of today's isolated living, the stresses of being closed in with loved ones, keeping spirits up and preparing for a quick economy recovery. Change the victim mentality into a victorious mentality. So Barry, are you on? Barry, can you unmute yourself?
Yes.
We've got, there you go, Barry's on. Okay, so we're probably going to get a few more people in as we go. A lot of times it happens, they're having a hard time getting in, but we'll get more. Right now we have 14 on, so Barry, thank you for being on, and we're looking forward to a lot of great information. Last time you were here was, I think it was towards the end of last year, correct? Or in the middle of last year?
The middle to end, yeah, probably September, yeah.
Yeah, and we had a great turnout, and it was a great training, and I think a lot of people learned a lot of it, so they were really happy that we were going to have you back on. So thank you for taking your time, your busy schedule, to be with us, Barry.
It's my pleasure.
So if you want, go ahead if you want to start.
Okay, and this is going to be a little bit different from what I had gone through before, so it's not going to be redundant. What I've been talking about since the end of March, where everybody was sheltering in place out of necessity, is a little bit different because now the game has changed and we don't know when it's going to change dramatically. So we have to do the best that we can in these circumstances. And probably everybody with 1 or 2 degrees of separation probably know a horror story. I know a couple of people who died and some people that were really in an awful lot of pain, but have come through it, and who knows what the repercussions are for the future. But one of the bottom line takeaways for me anyway, and this is not something you have to write down, but I think it's common sense, that if you're not a victim, don't act like one. Life moves forward. And even though we have unsettling times, and not just because of COVID-19, but because of the political atmosphere. I mean, it's hard to turn on the television or to process any information from the outside without getting inundated with all kinds of, heavy duty rhetoric and bias and, all kinds of things are going on. I don't have to tell you what the world is. So it puts people into a situation where the change that we need to manifest to become relaxed and calm, focused and steady in what we do, those rules have changed. And what happens is that screws with our systems. So I've got some points. Some of you, for the very short background, when it was obvious that I wasn't going to be a pro baseball player, I jumped back into school because the world scared me. I wasn't prepared to do anything. And I was really excited by a couple of programs. I took a couple of master's programs, finished with those in psychology, and one was neuroscience. And this is the study of the nervous system. And the central core of the nervous system, of course, is the brain. And what they have found out for many years now is that we don't make psychological decisions, we make biochemical decisions. And we can change the chemistry in our heads by the way that we think and the way that we impact the brain, physically, mentally, and emotionally. So neuroscience hacks is what I'm about. I've stayed involved with that study, even though I've worked mostly with entrepreneurs, with hundreds of thousands of realtors. I first started working as a sports psychologist for focus and concentration. And you in real estate, you can know everything there is to know about real estate, which probably is not going to happen in one human being. But it's not how much you know, it's how much you do. And it's how good your focus is. You have a vision, you follow through with it, well, just like athletes. So I started working with some pro baseball players, track and field performers. And it's really interesting how people, when they commit themselves to focusing, it becomes a habit. And everything else that you do turns out a whole hell of a lot better. because the sabotage that we generally experience in the world is not the world's doing. It's in our own heads, right? We basically have an even playing field. Some people exceed, they have the lights on, they're moving forward, and other people just kind of get consumed by distractions. You know, squirrel, squirrel, this stuff all around. So neuroscience kind of makes it a little bit easier to have a basis of science that if you do this, you'll get that, right? Cause and effect. And I'm going to get very specific. I know I'm starting general now, but I want to kind of hone it down and bring it in more focused. For some of you who had heard me speak before, might have gone through this a little exercise, but I'd like to kind of kick this off with something for you to do and maybe perspectives on what I'm going to bring up that you haven't quite processed yet, but are really worth thinking about. So to start off, what I'd like everybody to do, take a deep breath in through your mouth and out through your mouth. Yeah, do it. Doesn't take a lot of instruction, does it? Now, this time I'd like you to take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose. The second way is a lot healthier. Do you know why? Well, you're on mute, so it's a rhetorical question, so I'll answer it myself. There are about 4 or 5 really good answers, so I'll kind of build up to the one that I really want to get to. But number one, obviously when you breathe in through your nose, the air passes by the nose hairs. The actual proper medical name for them they're called cilia. The cilia function just like the filter in your home. You're not just breathing pollutants from the outside. You're not just, breathing in the contaminants that are in the air, or as they're referred to as particulates. The nose hair literally have those things cling to them before they get into your lungs. It's a preventive, just like the heater at home. So that means that when you're actually washing your hands and washing your face, pay attention to putting a little soap and water up your nose, because as the collection maintains itself, some of that continues to be breathed into the lungs. Now, you don't want that in the best of times, but in these times, you don't know what's in the air that you're breathing that could really do you harm. So pay attention to washing out. Okay, that's one thing, but it's not the most important that I'm getting to. Another factor is this. When you breathe in through the nose, the air passes by the sinus passageways. The sinus passageways, through lots of studies, scientific studies, have been shown to dump at least 50% more oxygen into the air that you're breathing into the lungs. The more oxygen you have in your lungs, the more gets transferred into your blood system. And that's a very good thing, because oxygen detoxifies, helps bring nutrient into the cells at the molecular level. That's not the most important thing I'm getting to. When people are, and there are people who are nose breathers, you know who you are, and there are people who are mouth breathers. Now, we do both, but predominantly, and lots of tests have been done on this, people who breathe in through the nose have a tendency of breathing a little bit deeper into the lungs. When you bring air deeper into the lungs, it has a massaging effect on the organs that are in your gut area. For those organs, the liver, the kidney, all of those, gallbladder, pancreas, all of those things that are in the lower gut need to be moved in order for them to work most efficiently. Because if they stay stuck in one place, things that stay in one place have a tendency of staying that way and literally not functioning as effectively. You stay in one place, even if you're sitting in a chair in front of a computer, if you get up 2-3 hours later, and some people just get locked in, you're going to find that your joints need a little bit of oiling. You need a little stretch here and there. Well, same thing holds true with your organs. That's not the most important thing I'm getting to. Top-ranked endurance athletes are taught to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose because the exhalation going through the nostrils compared to the mouth is much slower. It means that oxygen or air stays longer in the lungs and literally is used, transferred into oxygen more efficiently, breathing slower through the nose. That's not the most important. Here's the most important thing that I want to get to. When you breathe in through the nose, there's a rush of air that comes in higher into your facial mask. It causes friction, right? There's one surface moving on another. The friction up in this area of your face touches your skull. The skull's job is to protect the brain. Inside the skull, therefore, is the brain. And in this portion of your brain, the frontal portion of your brain is called the neocortex. The neocortex is what you use to think critically with. Right, wrong, good, bad. You're making judgments. You're making decisions. You're connecting the dots. You're making sense of what I'm saying, hopefully. The vibration on the skull creates a vibration on the brain that is touching the skull directly on the other side. When those brain cells, neuron cells, get excited, they work better. They connect with their partners. They literally spread messages faster and easier. And every once in a while, you recognize it in one of those aha moments that people talk about, one of those, whoa, you nailed it on a putt. You gave a presentation to die for. You listened to somebody and you really understood what was happening to the point where you could be very selfless and with empathy, give them sage advice. And you walk away saying, where did those words, wow, was I on target today? Every once in a while you hit peak experiences, but every once in a while you suck. And so do I. And I'm pointing a finger at you. Between the peaks and the pits, the peaks are a lot more fun. If you want more of those peak experiences, here's the little ritual, simple as it is, that will work in your favor 8 out of 10 times, because you have the capacity every time to come from a better place. Now, if you don't buy into that, you're not going to buy into this. But you know that not every performance is stellar. So before you give a listing or a sales presentation, before you sit to take a test or read a book and you really want to stay focused, take a few deep breaths in through your nose and out through your nose, just slow and easy. And because when you focus on breathing, it slows down the brain activity, you have less distractions that you're thinking about. You're a better learner. As a result, you're at that time more open to positive suggestion. So as you've taken 3, maybe 4 deep breaths in, tell yourself, give yourself an affirmation. This is not a new term to anybody, but in superlative terms, how you're going to perform in the upcoming activity. So I'll give a great presentation, ask appropriate questions, listen well, close assertively. I'll remain calm and relaxed throughout, as an example. I'll play the next 18, or if you're a real golfer, 19 holes of golf with greater focus and concentration than ever before. Then take that breath in, let it go, open your eyes if you have them closed, and why not? It takes 10 seconds. It's an insurance policy, and it will work because you can create a different and better version of yourself by being mindful. You have heard that term before. You hear it all the time. Be in the moment, be present, mindful, conscious, same thing. And in previous decades, they used different terminology, but you know what that's all about. When you're present, you do your best work. You're your best person. So this is just simply a way of doing that with some pretty great consistency. Now, here's a list of 8 things that I think are important. There are lists of 29 things if you really want to get to it. It's what makes my list special. I picked it. I put it together. So this is not the list, but this is a list. And I'm going to take you a little deeper in the weeds than what you might think. So
Barry, can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
Before you go to that,
sure.
You said something really important, and I'm taking notes here, but you said you have the capacity of coming from a better place, or how did you end it?
Sure.
You have the capacity of coming from, can you finish that?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I'm kind of doing this, this is who I am. So I don't have notes on that. But you can be a better version of yourself. That may
yeah,
be.
I wrote down, you have the capacity of coming from a better place. Okay.
Yeah, a more mindful place. I don't know if I started tangling those words in, but I think people understand the concept that sometimes we're truly present and we really bring it. And so it could be sex, right? Sometimes you're really mindful and you say, whoa, that was awesome. And sometimes you could have phoned it in, right, guys? I mean, we're talking life. So whatever the terms are, the concept is, if you believe that you can be a little bit better in what you do, and all you have to be is a little bit better, what distinguishes those people who do things with greatness and the people who are trying all the time, don't confuse activity with results. You know, there are triers and there are doers. The difference is so minuscule. It's just paying attention a little bit more and a little bit more of the time, right? I mean, I've seen some absolutely horrific people who didn't understand anything about real estate really, but who were really good people because they were great listeners and they could really project a dream. We're storytellers. That's what I'm talking about, being a better version of yourself. So whatever the words are Richard's looking for, I'm not hitting the nail on the head again exactly, but I want to get the concept across. So I don't think you can doubt that. And this list that I want to kind of get into are things that you know. There are 3 words that will cut down anybody in terms of learning. The 3 words are, I know that. Let go of the child inside of you that knows everything and be open, because maybe you hear something for the umpteenth time and now it makes even more sense. Or maybe you hear it differently and it gives you a little springboard into solving other problems. So be in the moment with this. Here's my first thing. Now, this is not in any order of importance. It's just a list. So stay with the list. And the list starts with, stay on as regular a schedule as you can. Now, I know you're in real estate and your life can turn on an email or on a text or on a phone call. I get it. Some of you are at home with family and they have needs. And sometimes those, best laid plans of mice and men oft go awry, right? You get screwed up. But if you maintain a proper schedule during the day, you don't confuse the brain. Oh, your brain knows what you're doing. I'm not talking about that at the easy level. But when you're upsetting the circadian rhythm, right, the biorhythms within you, then things start happening. You start producing different hormones. Go to sleep at approximately the same time. Approximately, not to the minute. That's not important. Wake up at approximately the same time. I know some days you don't have to get dressed at all. You don't have to get up at all. You don't have to do anything at all. I would imagine that at least half of you guys listening to me right now aren't wearing pants, right? So you can create your own schedule. You don't have to travel. You're not walking through a lot of houses, stuff like that. But do the things that are extraordinary. Take a trip out to the beach for a sunset. Go take a hike in the mountains. Do things that you're going to really remember. But when you're off your schedule, things happen to 2 of your important systems internally. One is your lymph system, LYMPH. Your lymph system is your detoxifying system. When you sleep at night in regular sleep cycles, and lots of people are off their sleep cycles, especially now, if you get on a regular sleep cycle, and I will help you with that, and it will not cost you any money to do so. So there's no what's coming. So if you're off your sleep cycle, bad things happen. Here's what happens. When your head hits the pillow, when you fall asleep, about 75 to 80 minutes later, you engage in a REM sleep, rapid eye movement. It's where you dream. It's also where your short-term memory gets transferred to your long-term memory. It's where you process information. You really learn things. It's like your kids doing homework. That's when they learn, not in a classroom, but when they have to put it together on their own and piecing things together so that somebody says either you need to work on it or good job. So when you sleep at night, very important to experience rhythmical organic sleep. You sleep about 5 sleep cycles every night, about 7-8 hours, and about 20% of that time is in REM sleep. Here's another thing that happens in REM sleep that you might not have known. When you're in REM sleep, your lymph system that stores the toxins that your body produces during the day from what you eat, what you drink, exercise. I mean, it's just natural to produce toxins. They're stored in the lymph nodes, N-O-D-E-S, and that holds. In your REM sleep, they open into your bloodstream so your bloodstream can take them out. And in the morning, when you evacuate your system, that's what you're doing. You're detoxifying your system. If the lymph nodes are not triggered by the brain in REM sleep to detoxify, they hold on to some toxicity. And if you do that over a period of time, it's a matter of dementia and brain fog and fatigue, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's. There's a lot of things associated with toxification within the system. So sleep well, learn to sleep well, not just having an extra glass of wine when you go to sleep or an over-the-counter medication or whatever, or you smoke a little doobie or it's a little CBD or THC or whatever it is that floats your boat. Hey, look, have a good time, knock yourself out. But when those things, the additives, become a go-to, you got problems in River City. So you got to look for a more organic way of doing it, because that toxicity and the dependency on it over a lifetime will get you into a lot of pain and a lot of disaster down the road. Here's another little tip. Science has shown when you are sleeping on your left side and when you're consciously aware of how you're sleeping, shift to sleeping on your left side as much as you can. That will detoxify the system more efficiently than if you were laying on your back or your stomach or on your right side. It's the configuration of your organs that make that a reality. Sleep on your left side. Maybe you didn't know that. Now you do. So do it right. Here's another thing. Aside from the sleep, here's a little thing for those of you that have gotten into taking naps. I call it a nappuccino. If you enjoy a cup of coffee every once in a while, and you still are in the course of your day and you don't want to have high ups and downs, but you need to take care of business, but you just like to take a little 15-minute snooze, here's an idea. Enjoy a cup of coffee. Yeah, look at stuff. Have a nice time. Enjoy the coffee. But set your alarm in whatever shape or form you have it for 20 minutes down the road. You see, it takes about 20 minutes for the caffeine in your coffee, the reason that most people will drink coffee during the day. It'll take about 20 minutes for that caffeine to be processed through your organs. It does not hit you immediately. It has to go through a process of absorption and then distribution through your systems. So it takes about 20 minutes. That gives you the time to take a nap without the negative effect of the caffeine that way. When you wake up to the alarm or otherwise, and you're about to make some prospect calls, contact your sphere of influence, or do whatever is important for your next fragment of time, whatever that block of time is, you're going to do it with more energy and more focus. Some people do the caffeine, some people take additives. They're called nootropics, like niacin. You know, there's lots of stuff that's over the counter. You know, see what works for you. Most don't have negative side effects long-term, so you can try. But nonetheless, cappuccino, a nappuccino is what I call it. Okay, I know it's kind of sappy. Here's another point that's really important, like you didn't know this. Eat well. In normal times, which these are not, eating well is a good idea. In these times, it's really important, because how you eat determines a lot of your mood in the course of your day. Most of us, well, let me speak for us. About every 2 weeks, we load up over at, Costco, right? You load up, you get $500 worth of food, last year, the next 2 weeks, or whatever it is, depends on the size of your family, obviously. Well, we generally go for a lot of, the easy stuff, the satisfiers, the fun foods that are generally loaded with high fats, salts, and sugars. Those things will do you in. Hey, look, every once in a while you do that, because the comfort food is made for comfort. But when comfort becomes the go-to on a regular basis, Your brain doesn't like it, your heart doesn't like it, your organs don't process that kind of crap very easily when you do it with a great deal of consistency. The most powerful way of eating, the most proper way of eating for health and vitality for now and in the future, according to literally every neuroscientist that you could tap into, is the Mediterranean diet. Probably no surprise for many of you. It gets its fat content from avocados, from cold pressed virgin olive oil, not from the other stuff. Because in the processing, you have free radicals that are released in your body. Opt for something that may be more expensive, but that will really serve you. It is whole grain wheat, whole grains. It is basically proteins from combinations of fruits and vegetables that contain proteins, and oily fishes like salmon, like sardines. Not so much the Western diet. The Western diet of meats and poultry, etc., literally has found to be literally creating breaks in the blood system in the brain over a period of time. So every once in a while, if you're not going to commit yourself to being a pescatarian or a vegetarian, have a nice, steak or whatever it is, but kind of cut back on that if you can with consciousness. Look at the Mediterranean diet, because when you go shopping or when you're in a restaurant and you're prompted to perhaps make the better choice, make the right choice instead of the easy choice, if you do that, you're breaking the dopamine loop. When you buy something that gives you pleasure, like processed foods, high in content with, fats and stuff that you know you shouldn't be eating, it creates the anticipation of doing it. When you eat that food, you get jacked up because it's a satisfier. So the more you get, the more you want. The more you want, the more you get. It's the brain producing dopamine. It's a neurotransmitter, and you get locked into that habit pattern. Every time that you make a better choice, instead of creating the cortisol, the negative choice, as a repercussion after you've eaten the crap and you know that you shouldn't, you go on a little mini guilt trip. That's the cortisol. That's the punishment kind of thing, the stress-filled guilt trip that you experience. Every time you make a better choice, you get more association with dopamine. The more you make those choices, the better the dopamine flows within your system. You become more pleasured at your choice and at your eating, and that becomes the replacement habit or attitude. Habits, attitudes will change within a 2 to 4 week period of time, but you have to work on it with some kind of consistency. It doesn't happen because you have an epiphany of what's correct. The brain has to be trained, and it's just like a puppy dog. This is a good time for many people to think about taking supplements, because most of your foods are not organic. Most of your foods are not grown with consciousness, but you internalize it anyway, and most of the nutrient value is minimized. So you take a look at what supplements may be good for you, maybe in concert with a nutritionist or a doctor, but this is a time to pay attention, because everything is heightened when there is more stress and pressure around. The brain doesn't like it, and in its adaptations, it will create the path of least resistance. So we have a tendency of being a little bit more lackadaisical, lazy about things, and eating is one of those things. Here are 2 supplements that I'm not going to suggest that you get, but I'm suggesting that you look into because they're smart. One was developed back in 1998, and literally the concept of it produced a Nobel Peace Prize by a man by the name of Dr. Louis Ignarro, Ignarro. I met him a couple of times. He's still a research chemist at UCLA. He won it for with 2 associates in the field of medicine, Nobel Peace Prize, 1998. And it had to do with the utilization of nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a supplement that you take that stimulates your body to create more useful oxygen. We take in air. The air is transformed into oxygen in your lungs. It The product itself, nitric oxide, was first used for people who had stroke issues or heart attack issues. If you're not getting enough oxygen to the heart and to the brain, bad things happen. Lots of different kinds of things with different names, but it happens for that reason. Those organs get suffocated. The inflammation overcomes the utilization of oxygen. Make sense? I think it does when you really think about it. Now, from that product, it was later developed into Viagra for problems of a different issue, not your heart and not your brain. You understand. But now, professional athletes, top-ranked amateur athletes, people who do extensive exercise or competitive things are taking it because if you oxygenate the system before a workout or a competition, you get more mileage out of it. So you weekend warriors, or if you're more serious about your athletics, think about and look into the research of nitric oxide. You'll find great stuff. There's no downside to it. And I suggest if you do it, buy into it. Not expensive, but I'm saying buy into it for 2 or 3 months so you can see the transformation of what takes place, the before and after. That's one. The other supplement that I would suggest came to me a number of years ago by a friend of mine who is an MIT graduate. He's a PhD in microbiology, one of my close friends. And John stays in touch with a lot of neurological experiments that are being done with foods. And he says that now they're finding extraordinary results with lecithin. Lecithin, you've heard the name. It's on a lot of vitamin bottles because it's a supplement, but in far too less of a dose. They're doing it at 3,000 to 4,000 milligrams per day. That's what I've been doing. It has to do with minimizing the inflammation. Inflammation is carried through your blood. It settles around your organs and it stifles the organs using themselves the way that they were originally created. Gets in the way. That's as a result of a Western diet and a sedentary lifestyle of people who talk a good game, but are literally much more time on their couch than they are up and active. So, figure it out. So that's my thing on eating. So I would suggest, and drink a lot. And by the way, here's something that's interesting. We have about 100 billion brain cells, 100 billion, and the infinite number of connection through the synapse, brain cell to brain cell. There's like 10 on each side, axons, dendrites. Oh, read into it. It's just fascinating. Probably not for you, but for me, this is what kind of gets me excited. It's about my life, huh? Anyhow, when you read into it, you recognize that we also have, according to science, this is for a lot of years now, we've got 100 million brain cells in our stomachs. Yikes, 100 million brain cells. Same neuron brain cell configuration as what you have in your brain. You've heard about gut reactions. You get a feeling about something in your guts. Don't dissuade yourself. Go into it a little bit more and think through it. Because what happens in your gut, you've got trillions of mitochondria, little cells, and that's what digests your food. Everything that goes into your stomach is broken down into something that gives you life or gives you death. That's it. There are no halfways. So processed food gives you death, and it creates problems with the mitochondria. As a result, here's what happens. Here's the reason for this whole thing. The gut cells are connected to your brain cells by it's a vein. I mean, it's a nervous connection. It's called the vagus nerve, VEGUS. And it goes from your gut, from your intestine, to the amygdala portion of your brain. That's the reactionary portion of our brain, the primitive brain, if you will. Instincts, mostly flight rather than fight. So when you get a gut reaction, the tendency in milliseconds, there's resistance until that urge gets up into your brain, and it goes from the amygdala, mid portion of your brain, to the frontal lobes of your brain in the cortex, which evaluates, is this right? Is this wrong? Is this good? Is this bad? So we have reactions first, then we justify it with the rational thinking portion of the brain. That's why you want to keep your gut in good shape. And my last suggestion is, and I've got a newsletter coming out on this stuff in the next couple of days or maybe early next week, look into pre and probiotics if you haven't already, because that will get your gut balanced and well tended to. Do the research first, see if it works for you. These are not expensive things to do, but they'll make a difference in your health and in your energy. So will my number 3. I finally gotten to exercise, damn it, exercise. Neuroscientists say that the most important kind of exercise is aerobic exercise, running, the best of those. Because when you're running, you're doing this mindless thing of just having to focus on what your next footfall is. You're detaching from a lot of thinking process. It allows your systems to calm. It allows your mind to focus. It is that state of balance created from within. It's not just about the muscles. It's not just about your heart. It's not just about the blood vessels that are expanding and taking blood and all of that. But it also has to do with raising your T cell counts. Your blood is comprised of plasma, white cells, and red cells. The white cells contain T cells. The T cells fight all the garbage that goes in your system, the free radicals that happen naturally from processing food and drink and exercise. Those free radicals have to be dealt with by your immune system. That's the lymph system. So the T cells are literally elevated when you exercise aerobically. Fog a mirror. Nice to take a little stroll. That's better than nothing. But if you can take a stroll a little bit faster, where you're doing a little bit of huffing and puffing, not where you're going to die, but where you're creating a little fog on a mirror, that's a good thing, because you're creating more wellness in your heart, and what's good for your heart is also good for your brain. So exercise, really important. Another thing that happens when you exercise, your T cell count goes up when you're exercising, and when you do it with a consistency, whether it's every day or every other day, depending on what the exercise is, because you need the muscles and the nerves and everything to regenerate themselves. So you can't do the same repetitive things, so alternate your workouts. Nonetheless, what happens is your T cell count gets a tendency of staying higher when you consistently exercise. So if you do something once a month, I guess it's better than nothing. But if you do it every other day or even every day, so much the better. Something else that's tickled by your exercise is your endocannabinoid system. Say that 3 times quickly. Your endocannabinoid system has to do with your pleasure centers in your brain. When you experience pleasure, whether it's a big laugh or whether it's a chuckle or whether it's just an acknowledgement from the inside that feels right, the information is sitting in a good place kind of thing. It's because the pleasure centers are engaged. Makes you happy. When you exercise with consistency, the density of those nerve cells in your brain become more compacted and they transfer joy more so. So you experience more pleasure. So if you exercise with consistency, your sex life takes a step up in terms of enjoyment. So does almost everything else that you do that you derive happiness from. This is a world that could use a little bit more happiness, a little more joy, a little more pleasure. Well, you do your thing and I'll do mine, but these are some elements that really can matter. Here's another one, my number 4, stay in touch with people. Oh, I don't mean just your sphere of influence with the outside idea of getting a referral or getting a sale or a listing or a rental or whatever it is that you're looking for, but staying in touch with people that you don't ordinarily stay in touch with, sharing some of the good stuff within you. We're storytellers. I don't know if you've read the book or you've heard of the book. The book is called Sapiens. We are Homo sapiens. And we have lived through all the other incarnations of when people, there's Homo erectus, there's about 10 different versions of who we are, from Neanderthal into where we are. And the book, written by a man by the name of Harari, um, chronicles from the time we literally dragged ourselves out of the primordial sludge, single cell, all the way through. And he says about 15, 20,000 years ago, when we settled down from our nomadic ways of, hunting and gathering and being out on the trail and, eating right and exercising on a daily basis or else you die. We settled into an agrarian society. We grew grains. We ate cereal. What crap. It really is, because it's processed. Whole grain's a whole lot better, but to make it palatable and to make it stay, we had to add stuff to it. The point is, when we started settling down, we started remembering things and creating lore. We created religions. The world is filled with different religions. My God is better than your God. And we became storytellers, and it became a part of who we are as peoples. So if you touch somebody by Zoom, by Skype, by FaceTime, by telephone, who you haven't spoken to, and write down three names. I went back at the end of March, since we were going to stay in one place, that you had access to more communications. And I started contacting people from high school and college, people I played ball with, people that you meet along the way, and a thought comes to mind. When you let them tell their story, you start laughing a little bit, right? That's why you're calling them. You're not going over hard times necessarily, unless there was a positive punctuation mark at the end of that sentence, but you're sharing, and people need to tell their story. If you're there, you're creating a bond. There is more oxytocin that is produced by the brain when you start cementing a relationship. So while you're having your pleasure in telling stories and listening and going through little pieces of history and what's going on in your life now, you're also creating a friend. You're creating trust. And who do people do business with? It's not people who bang on their door and leave a card and run like hell to the next door. It's people that they create trust relationships with. Could that be you? Could that be you a little bit more? So expand your book of business, so to say, your sphere of influence by expanding it by 2 or 3 people every day, by contacting people who you already knew, maybe in your previous lifetime, and share a little of the good stuff going forward. God knows we need a lot more of that. So you do yours and I'll do mine. Here's number 5 for me. Learn something new. You've heard this before. Some people get on the track and then they fail. They just go back to the old way of doing things, and it's another nail in the coffin. Damn it, I don't get technology. I tried on the social media thing, and it's just like, I have to get somebody to do that. I can't learn that language. I can't do this. I can't do that. That's because if you do it for a week or 2, you're out of your comfort zone, and the brain don't like that. So it will sabotage you, and you come up with all the reasons in the world not to do something. Here's a little anecdote. Here's how you can find something that you might want to do. Because when I say take something and do it, learn something new, people generally say to me in coaching, because one-on-one is where I really hear the feedback. You listen to a seminar, you nod your head. No, the guy is saying some, interesting, maybe smart things. And then it's, who's the next speaker on the agenda? I got to get off here at 11 o'clock. So here's something that you can do if you just think about, what do you do? Just pick something out of the air to learn. Here's a concept. I call it 513. If you're taking it, 513. Write down 5 things that have gone through your mind sometime in your past that you would have liked to done if you had the money, if you had the time, if, all those conditional words that kept you from doing it. And if it comes out to 7 things, if it comes out to 3 things, if it comes out to 10 things, I'm just giving you an idea. Write down at least 5 things. Select 1. That's where my 1 comes from. And do it for 3 months. 2 months. I don't know. Take a college course online for whatever it is that's interesting for you. Get involved with social media, but do it for a couple of months. Get past the learning curve, which is steepest in the beginning, until you can see light at the end of the tunnel. And then at the end of those 2 or 3 months, you can either pull the plug and say, no, that didn't float my boat, not interested in that. I understand it to an extent, and I'm saying no because of my choice. It's not just a knee-jerk reaction. Or you might say, whoa, I never saw how interesting this was. I got past myself. And you probably have the intellect to do it. So if bad programming has come from early on in your childhood, you're probably way better in technology than you think. You're probably way better in math than you think. You're probably way better with communications than you think. Don't buy into what other people gave you as impressions when you were so impressionable that you couldn't even resist. And that's what happens. We get nicknames. Oh, she's good at this, but lousy at that. Those are labels. We buy into them as kids because we don't have the filtration system to protect ourselves. So get past that. Learn something. When you learn something, you are probably riding a high. When you get something, you really get it. That's a high. You know when it's even higher? When you share that information with maybe somebody in your family, maybe a friend, and all of a sudden that topic comes up and you open up your eyes and you say, I've been learning to play the guitar and you know what I'm doing? And the other person says, wow, I never even thought about it. And you share your story. It elevates them. There's a book that was written by Khalil Gibran called The Prophet. And one of the quotes that I steal from his book periodically is, he stands tallest who helps another up. We're living in a world where a lot of people need the help up. And you and I are the ones to do it. Because if not us, who? If not now, when? So that's my little story on learning something new. Here's my number 6. Write down 3, 4, 5 things that you're grateful for. In your mind, most of you have said, everybody says that. I do that. Every coach says that. And you know what? They should, and so should you. But here's a little twist on that. Everything I've said so far, a little bit of a twist to it, right? So when you go to sleep at night is an extraordinary time to give yourself that graciousness of gratitude, just writing things down, not just keeping them in your head. When you write them down, it impacts more of your brain differently, more thorough, stays with you longer, create better dream stages at night. Yeah. Here's the twist. Do it in the morning when you wake up. If what they say is correct, that the most important meal of the day is breakfast, right? If you start the day with simple sugars, it's fast, it's easy. A Pop-Tart, whatever. All that crap that's processed, and it's crap. What happens is your insulin takes a ride. It's a roller coaster going inside your brain. You give kids sugar for breakfast, you got to peel them off the ceiling. When you're home and you're with kids, you know when to give those kids the sugar. It's not when they're going to sleep at night. It's at the time when they want you want them to blow off their energy, right? It's true. Well, if it's true as to what you put into your mouth that's important, you think what you put into your brain might be important? Write down 3 things, maybe 4, maybe 5, whatever the number is that you're grateful for when you wake up in the morning. Go to the bathroom, do your thing, but write down. Now, if you easily get to 4 or 5 things, go a little farther. Go for another 2 or 3, because in the struggle is the value. It's not the end result. If you do 10 push-ups, I'm glad you did 10 push-ups, but the value was in actually the strain on your muscles and joints to do those 10 push-ups in the first place. So if you're in a really terrible place mindset-wise, you can't get a deal, nothing's happening business-wise, you just, nothing is right. What I suggest is, if you have to dig a little bit deeper to get those 3 gratitude things to write down, you're the better person for it, having gone through. Dig a little bit deeper, show yourself what you can do, not what you can't. Here's my point number 7. Stop that negative self-talk. And here's how you stop it, because we all do it. I do it and you do it. But if you wallow in it, it gets even worse. Then you end up dumping it on the people around you. All kinds of bad things are happening with people who are living close together. We love those people, but 24/7, yikes, that's a strain for a lot of people. When your mind wanders into negative areas, take a look at a painting on a wall, distract yourself. Look at a picture, a photo, you and friends. Where were you at the time? What were you guys laughing about at that time? If you're outdoors, pay attention to what's growing around you. Go over and smell a flower. I'm talking about a simple distraction in a positive way. And all it takes is about 20 seconds of a distraction to give you your mind back. And then immediately, where do we go forward from here? If you do that with consistency throughout the day, catch where your mind is when it's not serving the positive purpose, distract yourself, look at something that makes you feel good. What happens is, it's not just that you're looking at something that is a diversion, but you're creating more dopamine in your brain, more oxytocin, more serotonin. And what happens in a pleasure state is that you approach the next thing with more openness, with more capabilities, with a better attitude and aptitude. I know that makes sense. Here's my last point. Learn how to let go. You know, a lot of what I do, if you've taken my programs, you know that my focus is on hypnosis. I teach hypnosis, and I do it for a couple of reasons that are really important. It's the deepest form of relaxation that is known without the use of drugs or chemicals. I am not here to take your drugs or chemicals away, but when they become the go-to, you got problems. But if you learn how to relax, now whether it's meditation, whether it's my system of a progressive relax, it doesn't really matter. I lived in India before Nan and I had kids. We lived in India, and we just went from, you know, smart guy to smart guy. They call them gurus. Guru is another name for teacher. You know, it's what Jesus was, right? He's a teacher. And you pick up a little bit here, a little bit there. And you know what? It flat out doesn't matter how you learn to relax, but use it as a go-to. Because when you actually practice on a daily basis, you become familiar with who you are on the inside, what it feels like, and the steps that are there. And then you can take shortcuts. There was a book that was written in 1985 by a Dr. Herbert Benson. The name of the book is called The Relaxation Response. And the relaxation response says, one of the points of the book is, I don't suggest that you necessarily buy the book, but the point that he makes is, no matter how you learn to relax, even if you don't do it for a while, years, it's like the muscle memory of riding a bike or throwing a ball. You never lose it. So if you learn to relax, go to that place. You're a better learner at that place. And that's where hypnosis comes in. Hypnosis is the addition of affirmations into a relaxed state of mind. That's what it is. You can call it a lot of different, terms. People don't like to use the word hypnosis. They'll talk about guided sessions, guided meditations, affirmations. Sure, it's the same stuff, but in a relaxed state of mind, your brain is more open to your own positive input. So garbage in, garbage out, that's what you get. It's a catalyst to make things faster and easier happen for you. And it doesn't matter whether you apply it to personal things like eating more appropriately, stopping smoking, having a better attitude, more comfortable, being more comfortable in presentations, a better listener, more assertive, a better tennis player, sex life, controlling your blood pressure, which comes from stress problems. All of those things can be controlled, and hypnosis is a great way of doing it. Here's where I want to go with that. I want to take you to my website. And I know, Richard, you can do this. I don't want to mess anything up when I'm talking, but this is a free giveaway to everybody who is listening to me right now. There are over 40 people on this call. So you guys are special because you're on the call. I'd like you to go after this is all over. I'll answer some questions in the few minutes that we may have. You may have another thing coming up. So let me do this quickly. Go to my website. As you see my name spelled, barryeisen.com. It ain't hard. The homepage, you'll see a 2-minute video. It's nice. Listen to it. I make sense. It invites you to take the download that is right next to it. It's a 23-minute download. Everybody who stumbles on that page, and about 200,000 people a month stumble on that page and download that puppy. Wow, this is a crazy, crazy world, right? So everything is so, wow. If you download it, that's nice. There are 5 points to think about, and there's a hypnosis session. Well, that's not why you're special. Here's what I want to get to. You can look at the home page and ignore all the stuff that's on it, but pay attention to the 4 drop-down boxes across the top. For those of you that are on my page now, one says programs, right? I think it's the 4th one over from the left. Programs, real simple. Click on it. The bottommost one says hypnosis CDs and downloads. If you click on that, you'll come to 13 download titles, programs that I have. They're all well-researched, good information on the first track of each of them, 25, 30 minutes worth of solid stuff. You realize I'm not here motivating you now. It's not rah, rah, if I can do it, you can do it kind of thing. That's what infomercials are based on. If you do this, you'll end up with that. That's what my message is. It's behavioral, not motivational. Motivation comes from the inside of you. Once you understand something and you create the results, that's where confidence comes from. You don't work on confidence. You work on creating victories, results. Confidence comes along for the ride. Self-esteem comes for the ride. Don't contact me and tell me you need better confidence, because I'm going to ask you what will give you the confidence. You already know what that is. Just do it. So look at any of those programs. You can open up the boxes and see what they're about. Don't buy anything. Send me a personal email from your email account, whatever that is, and put the number or the title of that program. I will reply with the links that you have requested. I don't do a drip system. There's nothing that follows up to help you buy anything extra. You get that for free just for being on this call. Thank you for listening to me this time. For those of you that want to either redo my program or take it for the first time, this is the 3-hour seminar that I taught last year and years before, and what I've been doing. Look at the first drop-down box under programs. It says Personalized Life Skills Seminar. It is a text and 2 audios that go along with it. That is the entire seminar that I did on your premises. We're not doing that these days, obviously. This gives it to you. It also comes with the personalized hypnosis session. One-on-one, we get together, put together a list of your goals that I record, and you get a personalized hypnosis session recorded that I send you. That's all part of it. If you look at that drop-down box, it says it's $139. When I was there, it was $150. That's what everybody paid who's listening to me who did. Here's the deal for today and tomorrow until 5. If you're interested, instead of $139, because that's what my website can process, the cost for you guys at All Stars is $100. So if you're looking to redo your hypnosis session from me, or if you're looking to take on the whole program, you'll never get it less than $100, and it's one of the best programs that you will find for personal development for your business and your life. Just send me an email. We'll talk on the phone. You give me a credit card for $100, and I send you the links, and I follow up with you individually. It's a great value. Pay attention to it. Please do. Please do. For you. I mean, this is not making me a lot of money. That's fine. But this is the day that you want to share. So thank you for listening to me. Richard, thank you for all the time that you gave me. If there are questions, do you want to shout them out, or am I supposed to look at chat? Richard, you're in charge. Tell me what to do.
Barry, this is Kyle. He's having some trouble with his Zoom, so he can't unmute. But if you guys have any questions, you can unmute yourselves and ask questions. If not, you can put them in the chat. I'm looking at the chat, and let's see. No, I got some thank yous for you. Lucelli says thank you, Barry, but no questions in the chat.
Okay. Would you, and you can do this after this is in. I'm going to be in for most of the day today, a couple of coaching calls, but around that, I'll get back to you. Kyle, would you put the information in, just my contact information, just barryeisen.com and barryeisen@gmail.com. And for those
Perfect.
of you,
Perfect. I'll put it in the chat.
Good. And also my phone number for those of you that want to cut through that tape and just go, and I'll answer the phone directly. There's nobody else in today as a buffer. My number is 818-769-4300. Okay. All right.
All right. There you go, Barry. I'm going to put your stuff in the chat, but I will send it out to everybody so that they have your contact information. And thank you so much for those gifts. I appreciate it that you're doing that for us. Hopefully we can do something again like this soon, because I think everybody that was on it enjoyed it, and I'd like to get more people on it.
Would love to do it. And I will vary it the next time because there's always more to talk about. And you guys, I just enjoy being with you guys. And Richard's been a bud for a long time. I really appreciate you guys.
Yeah. Thank you, Barry. Thank you so much.
So long.